Hey guys, welcome to History University. My name is Tom and I will be your educator for this video. As some of you guys might know, I am a huge fan of the New York Knicks. The Knicks have been struggling for the last 20 years, but I am still a huge fan of them no matter what. The team itself has a pretty interesting name, the New York Knicks. Well, what exactly is a Knick? According to NBA.com, the term Knickerbocker traces its origins back to the Dutch settlers who came to the New World, specifically the settlers that came to New York. It refers to a style of pants that were worn by these settlers. The pants were rolled up just below the knee, which is known as a knickerbocker. In 1809, Washington Irving wrote the satirical book A History of New York from the beginning of the world to the end of the Dutch dynasty, while using the pseudonym Diedrich Knickerbocker. The book was often referred to as Knickerbocker's History of New York. Irving's book introduced the word Knickerbocker to signify a New Yorker who could trace their ancestry back to the original Dutch settlers. In the late 19th and early 20th century, Father Knickerbocker became a popular symbol of the city. Father Knickerbocker is completed with a cotton wig, three-cornered hat, buckled shoes, and of course, the famous Knickerbocker pants. So I guess the Knicks are a pair of pants, but also a type of Dutch settler, and also a reference to Washington Irving, and a reference to anything Dutch in New York, but also a reference to New York. It's a pretty loaded term that no one really uses anymore, but nonetheless, the Knicks are still one of my favorite teams. Other sports teams have similar unique origins. So today, I compiled a list of 10 American sports teams and the history behind their names. It is very common for sports teams in America to choose an animal to symbolize their team, with birds being one of the most common choices. This is why we have the Cardinals in both the MLB and the NFL. Across the league, we see birds like the Hawks, Pelicans, Falcons, Ravens, Orioles, Blue Jays, Eagles, and Seahawks. Franchises that don't choose an animal to symbolize them often choose something that is tied to their community. Generally speaking, these franchises choose something that has historical significance to the local area. The easiest of these historical teams to identify are the ones with the dates. In Philadelphia, we have the 76ers. The name comes from the signing of the United States Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia in 1776. The 76ers, or Sixers as many of the fans call them, even have an alternative logo where Benjamin Franklin is used to symbolize the team. Out west, there is another professional sports team that relates its team name to a date, the San Francisco 49ers. The team's name comes from the California Gold Rush. It is a reference to all the gold seekers who came to San Francisco during or around 1849. The gold rush itself began on January 24, 1848, when gold was found by James Marshall at Sutter's Mill in California. The news of gold brought approximately 300,000 people to California from the rest of the United States. The gold rush had severe effects for Native Californians and accelerated the decline of the Native American population due to diseases, starvation, and an event known as the California Genocide. In honor to embody the spirit of the gold rush, the 49ers have their mascot Sourdough Sam, who is dressed like a miner. Continuing on the theme of gold rushes, we have the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets, of course, are referring to gold nuggets. During the 19th century, there was a mining boom in Colorado. People rushed the area in hopes to get new fortunes by panning out gold and silver nuggets. Denver's logo originally included a miner, but today it just includes the pickaxe to symbolize mining. Oddly enough, before entering the NBA, the Nuggets actually used the name the Rockets, but that already belonged to another franchise, the Houston Rockets. The Rockets started in San Diego, but then moved to Houston. The team name became a lot more relevant with their new location. Houston is home to NASA's Lyndon B. Johnson Space Center. The Space Center has provided flight control function to every NASA human spaceflight since 1965, which includes the moon landing. The Space Center is popularly known by its radio call signs, Mission Control, or Houston.
Houston, say again, please?
Houston, we have a problem.
While NASA might be the pioneer for space, the Portland basketball team honors the legacy of early American pioneers who came to the Pacific Northwest. The Portland Trailblazers actually thought about naming their team the Portland Pioneers, but instead derived their team name from the trailblazing activity, which was done by explorers who were making paths through the forest. Portland was one of the last locations on the Oregon Trail, which is a 2,000-mile-long trail that spanned across America during the 1800s and led to the settlement of the American West. While all of the citizens were moving out west, they often had conflicts with the indigenous people who were inhabiting the land. The indigenous inhabitants of America have been referred to by many names, some of which have changed over time. For example, Washington, D.C. used to have a football team called the Washington Redskins, but for the past few years, the team's name has been under scrutiny. In 2005, the American Psychological Association issued a resolution called recommending the immediate retirement of American Indian mascot, symbols, images, and personalities by schools, colleges, universities, athletic teams, and organizations. The American Psychological Association sought out to do this because of the harm done by creating a hostile environment and the negative impact on self-esteem of American Indian children and the discrimination they might face. Under the pressure to change their name, the Washington Redskins decided to change their name to the Washington Football Team. Yes, that is right. They decided to name their team the Washington Football Team. I still can't fathom how postmodern this is for a sports team's name. Like seriously, if I made a movie 20 years ago and the main team was called the New York Baseball Team and they played actual MLB teams, every film critic out there would bash me for choosing such an unrealistic name for a team. That being said, I'm taking a very American approach by bashing the name Washington Football Team. For example, all of the greatest soccer teams seem to follow a pretty similar format. FC Barcelona, Football Club Barcelona, FC Bayern. Like Liverpool's name is Liverpool Football Club. That's no different than Washington Football Team. It's just very weird for the American sports viewer to see a team called Washington Football Team when every other team has a mascot. Another team that chose to refer to the indigenous people of America are the Cleveland Indians. They are often nicknamed Tribe and the Wahoos, the latter referring to their former logo, Chief Wahoo, which has also become under fire by some political pundits for being insensitive and depicting the Native Americans in an inappropriate way. This has led to recent talks about changing the team's name. The other American baseball team that refers to indigenous Americans is the Atlanta Braves. The term Brave often refers to a Native American warrior. This team name is a lot less controversial than the Indians, but still has some calls to change the name, as some people believe any references to the Native Americans as a sports team or logo should be seen as offensive. Recently, the chairman of the Braves stated that unequivocally the Atlanta Braves name will stay the Atlanta Braves. Moving on to another Native American-based team, the Chicago Blackhawks. The former owner of the team, Frederick McLaughlin, was the commander of the 333rd Machine Gun Battalion of the 86th Infantry Division during World War I. This division was nicknamed the Black Hawk Division, after a Native American of the Sauk Nation. Black Hawk of the Sauk Nation was a prominent figure in Illinois history. McLaughlin decided to name the hockey team after the Black Hawk Division that he served in. Like other Native American teams, they have faced some form of scrutiny, and going forward they will keep the name, but they have banned the use of headdresses worn at games. The last major sports team referring to Natives comes from the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs, as many of you know, come from the great state of Kansas. Wait, just kidding. It actually comes from Kansas City, Missouri, not Kansas City, Kansas. The origins of the Chiefs is probably one of the most interesting of all the Native teams. The Chiefs' name comes from former Kansas City Mayor Harold Bartle. Bartle founded a fake Indian Boy Scout tribe and adopted the nickname Chief as his own. As mayor, Bartle lured the former Dallas Texans to Kansas City and lobbied for the team name to be changed in his honor. So the team name actually refers to the mayor's nickname that he gave himself without any actual ties to any real Native American organizations. Despite not actually having origins of the Native Americans, the Kansas City Chiefs base other aspects of the franchise around Native references. They play at Arrowhead Stadium and use an arrowhead as their logo. The Natives did not have any form of metallurgy, so stone or obsidian arrowheads were crafted by the Natives. They also do a real intimidating tomahawk chop, which I'm 99% sure was stolen from the Florida State Seminoles, but nonetheless I still think it's epic. Alright guys, thank you very much for tuning in. That wraps it up for this video. I'm not exactly sure where most of my following stands on interest in sports, so I didn't want to bore you with a topic that was loosely related to history, but there are many more sports teams that have unique and interesting backstories that would be cool to share with you. So if you're interested in hearing more about sports teams and their naming, let me know in the comments down below and I can make another video featuring more teams and more history. Thank you guys very much for watching. Like and subscribe if you can. And most importantly, guys, have a great day.